Alright, here we go. Worst to best 2016 movies. I saw 17 movies this year. I believe I saw 16 last year, so it's a step up. You know, every year I get all the movies that I saw this year, put them in a list from worst to best, and make a video about it. Let's go ahead and get started. I really don't have much to say. Number 17, Independence Day Resurgence. This isn't a terrible movie. It just lacked the charisma the original had. The acting was fine, but the characters were bland and there was way too many. Judd Hirsch was completely pointless. The climax, it just went on too long, also. This movie was just a mess. There's just no other way to describe it. Like I said, though, it's not a terrible movie. You know, last year we had, Fantastic Four and, Insurgent to be like, oh yeah, these movies were just flat out bad. There's no movies on this list that are just flat out bad. There's just ones that are really kinda, So yeah, number 16, Ghostbusters. Once again, this is not terrible. It improved over the original in many ways. It had some faults, but the characters were enjoyable. There just wasn't enough ghost-busting, you know? They spent most of the movie developing gadgets, or also the villain was just dumb. The pacing was off and the editing was a little choppy, but there wasn't anything terrible about the movie. The characters were good. I enjoyed the 4 female Ghostbusters a lot more than I enjoy the original ones, actually. So yeah, number 15, Pride and Prejudice and Zombies. So, the idea was funny, but the movie just went nowhere. You can tell whoever wrote the book ran out of ideas halfway through it. You know, you can tell the person who wrote the book was like, okay, I figured out how to write the first half of the book, and then when she was finished writing that, instead of continuing that story that the first half of the book set up, they just went a bunch of random places for no real reason. And, yeah, it wasn't terrible. It was funny at times, and it made me laugh, but it just wasn't a great spoof movie. Number 14, X-Men Apocalypse. I thought this movie would be good. I did. How do you make a character like Apocalypse boring? How? The actors were good, and especially the younger cast members. The plot was predictable, but the movie was too long, and it was just uninteresting. You know, we've seen James McAvoy, Michael Fassbender, and Jennifer Lawrence, and Nicholas Hoult enough. Let's see some newer faces, and they did that for the most part, but it just wasn't good. Number 13, Batman vs. Superman, Dawn of Justice. Another flop. Let's start with the good. Ben Affleck is Batman. Henry Cavill is Superman. Gal Gadot is Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman's score, you know, that... Especially the opening credits. You know a movie's bad when the opening credits are the best scene. Legitimately, that was my favorite scene in the movie, was the opening credits, which is Batman's backstory, which we've seen a bunch of times. There were way too many pointless scenes, a complicated plot, and a really slow pace. I also didn't like the way Lex Luthor was written. He was the Joker. Let's face it, Jesse Eisenberg might have made a good Joker. Look at the way he acted in this movie. He acted like the Joker. The plot of this movie, I just had no idea what was happening the entire time. The characters' motivations were just not there. It was like 1/4 setting up future movies. I'm sorry, this movie just wasn't that great. Number 12, Batman the Killing Joke. Another Batman movie. This is a decent movie, you know, this is where we're getting into the movies that weren't great, but at the same time were somewhat decent. The introduction was really the thing that brought the movie down. This whole thing to kind of establish who Batgirl was. The writing was terrible. It was a cliche story with a cliche villain. Once we got to the actual killing joke part of the story, it had some flaws. It just had the same flaws that the graphic novel did. You know, the ending's too sudden, the Joker's origin was super cliche. Batman was kind of a bland character. Number 11, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. This is an okay movie. Like I said in my review, the plot just didn't really flow. The pacing was off, causing the movie to be complicated and boring. I enjoyed the characters, though, especially Newt Scamander. The sidekick was enjoyable, also. It's just that half the movie we couldn't figure out what the movie was building toward. Was it building toward Newt Scamander capturing all the beasts, or Colin Farrell capturing the Obscurus? So number 10, The Shallows. This is an okay Survivor movie. Blake Lively's character was interesting, and she manages to act without speaking, which is hard to do. The director does a good job kind of showing what she's thinking without being, too complicated. The shark at times, though, it acts way too smart for a shark to be. Especially at the end, he starts, taking things personal, and I'm just like, no, that's not a shark. Number 9, Suicide Squad. This is another kind of controversial movie about whether it's good or bad. I thought it was okay. I liked it in general. It's just the mood was a little off, but the actors were good in their respective roles. You kind of think, is this movie supposed to be kind of dark and gritty and have a really realistic portrayal, or is it going to be kind of light and funny? And they just couldn't find that in the middle that so many other movies have done so perfectly. The villains was bland, but they serve their purpose. They're not, they weren't supposed to be complex villains. Number 8, Deadpool. Another really anticipated movie. It was funny, and Ryan Reynolds was perfectly cast. I would have liked to see more of Colossus or Negasonic Teenage Warhead. The villain was also bland. I enjoyed the chemistry between Ryan Reynolds and Morena Baccarin also. The movie had a good pace and enjoyable characters, over-the-top action, over-the-top swearing. It was exactly what a Deadpool movie should have been. Number 7, Doctor Strange. That one random one I didn't review. I might go back and review it some other time. It's just, it was during my sabbatical, I guess what you call it. Story was good, and Cumberbatch was a good Doctor Strange. Just the villain was a complete cliche. Like, this is something that we've seen so many times, not just in Marvel movies, but in movies in general. I enjoyed the chemistry between Strange, the Ancient One, and Wong and Mordo. All the actors were good in their roles, and I can't wait to see them in Infinity War and a possible Doctor Strange sequel. Number 6, Star Trek Beyond. This is an okay sequel. I personally like Into Darkness more. It took us back to the old Trek with a lot of philosophical dialogue and thought-provoking characters. We got to see Kirk and Spock go through things they haven't gone to before. The crew we've gotten to know and love was growing up. We get to see Sulu get married, Spock considering having a child. Minor spoiler. The only real flaw is the villain's plan tried to be, deep and philosophical, and you tried to make him this really powerful villain, but at the same time, it kind of made very little sense. Alright, I'm gonna get a lot of hate for this, but number 5, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Out of the Shadows. I will admit, I enjoyed this movie a lot. And the first one wasn't, terrible, but this one was certainly an improvement. It managed to kind of explore some complicated subjects like idea and family, while also being really fun and just silly. I don't think the public audience really wants a dark, brutal Ninja Turtles movie. Save that for Batman or The Punisher. Shredder was actually a character, and yeah, Krang was kind of bland. The action was good too. I especially liked the action scene on an airplane, even if the CGI was bad at times. We got a feel for all 4 of the Turtles' personalities, which is good. Focus was where it should be, which is on the Turtles and Splinter. Even if, April and Vern and Casey Jones are important, they are the focus of the movie. I also feel that the movie didn't really do Casey Jones justice, Stephen Amell is not a bad actor, it's just they just didn't write his character correctly. The ending was also just a complete rehash of the original. Then there's also Bebop and Rocksteady, which are just kind of dumb villains. So yeah, number 4, 13 Hours, The Secret Soldiers of Benghazi. This is actually the first movie I saw this year, but this movie actually got to me. It had great action, great acting, and a solid pace. It proved Michael Bay is not a terrible director. You get that feeling, of just these characters, or these real people, were in a hopeless situation. The first half of this movie, you just feel this sense of dread that just keeps growing, and then when the bad stuff starts happening, it just, it's like Lord of the Flies, throughout the first and second halves, the first and second thirds, you get this sense of just dread, and then when the boulder falls, you're just like, okay, this is it, the shit's going down. It really makes you feel for the people that were there. John Krasinski gives a really good performance as well, but he's not going to be nominated for it because Hollywood's a bunch of butthurt Hillary supporters. Number 3, 10 Cloverfield Lane. Another film in the Cloverfield universe that is slowly going to be developed. This has a good story and good performances and a thought-provoking story. The tone of this movie was very unsettling. Abrams shows off his talent as a director. The one gripe I would have with this movie is that I wish they had developed John Gallagher Jr.'s character a little bit more. He's just kind of that cliche redneck that's there for comic relief. Number 2, Rogue One, A Star Wars Story. This is a really good spin-off. It had a strong story and likable characters. I will admit it took a while to get going and the side characters were kind of bland. The villain was great though. I like Ben Mendelsohn. Then there's the Vader scenes, which were awesome. Gareth Edwards is also a really good director. It had its ups and downs, but I would say, it's a solid anthology, Star Wars anthology movie. So yeah, number 1, we all saw this coming, Captain America Civil War. Great characters, compelling performances, great action, great pacing. The airport fight scene was awesome. This is arguably the best Marvel Cinematic Universe movie. Spider-Man was introduced well. I do have a few gripes. I would have liked to see more action kind of between the two sides. I don't want to spoil too much, but, I would have liked to see the two sides get together and fight more often. They should have had less of this Winter Soldier story and more on the division between Captain America and Iron Man. I didn't feel like there was catalyst enough for these two sides to start fighting each other. They should have explained why the people took their sides a little bit more also, especially Natasha. Also, the villain, his plan kind of made no sense, and I feel like he shouldn't have been there. When we want Civil War, we want to see Captain America and Iron Man fight, not them, be tricked into fighting by Daniel Bruhl for some reason. It still was a good movie, though. So yeah, that's it. My worst to best 2016 movies. See you a year from now in 2017 doing my worst to best 2017 movies. I have no idea what the best movie will be in 2017, but I have a feeling it'll be either Justice League or Spider-Man Homecoming. So yeah, be sure to subscribe. Bye.